Welcome back to the Kyle Olson Show. Joining me now to talk about the anti-Second Amendment propaganda coming out of Chicago is Second Amendment correspondent for Breitbart News, AWR Hawkins. So Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot used the crime spree in downtown Chicago this week as an excuse to call for more gun control and has claimed that guns are coming from out of state, namely Indiana, and that is to blame. But AWR, what have you found?
Well, Kyle, we did an article at Breitbart, I believe it was a week and a half, 2 weeks, something like that ago, where we looked at ATF numbers for 2018. Those are the most recent numbers I could find. And those numbers found that the vast majority of guns recovered in Chicago and traced to their origin, that they were sourced to Illinois. Over 5,300 guns sourced to Illinois. And again, that consists of guns recovered in Chicago and traced. Now, the next largest group was a little over 4,300 guns that were from out of state, but guess what? They weren't from out of state as in 4,300 guns from Indiana or 4,300 guns from Wisconsin. They were out of state in that there were 4,300 guns from a total of 25 other states. In other words, 40 from this one, 80 from this one, 90 from this one. But the state, the vast majority of guns sourced in Chicago. That state was Illinois with over 5,300. That's what the ATF numbers show.
So what do you think, and maybe we're sort of trying to get into people's heads here, but what do you think is the real objective? Because, Lori Lightfoot, she's the mayor of the third largest city in the country. She can get whatever data, whatever advice she wants. Why do you think she goes out and says 60% of the guns are coming from out of state when the data shows otherwise?
Well, I think because her goal as a leftist is to secure universal background checks on a national level, to secure a quote-unquote assault weapons ban on a national level, to secure other gun controls like that on a national level. And, I'm sure your listeners are keen to these kind of things. So I don't want to talk like anyone doesn't understand, but I think we always have to be reminded that leftists are ideologues, and an ideologue will sacrifice even his constituents or her constituents' own well-being to secure their agenda. And that's why you have Lori Lightfoot pushing an assault weapons ban, Kyle, when there's already an assault weapons ban for the Chicago area because Cook County has an assault weapons ban. So see, there's so many contradictions here, but no one sees these contradictions because Lightfoot uses gun control as a deflection. And instead of dealing with the problem, she deflects and pushes for more gun control, even though a lot of the gun control she pushes would either be effective or is already in existence.
What is the definition of an assault weapon?
That's such a good question. I know you know it is. I'll tell you this. People should Google the assault weapons myth, those three words, assault weapons myth, and then do the plus sign and do Breitbart. Because I did a article, Kyle, I believe it was a few years ago, on, of all places, a New York Times article. And the New York Times admitted that in the 1990s, the Democrats created the term assault weapons so that they could then justify banning those weapons and that they could claim political gain, that they could claim they were fighting crime. This is all true. I know it sounds so strange. It sounds like fiction, but it's all true. And again, it's the assault weapons myth. If someone Googles those three words, then the plus sign in Breitbart, they can read that. But it originally came out of the New York Times in the 1990s. And they were basically saying, look, the Clinton administration wants to be able to claim that they've banned or they've reduced crime. So they're going to have a politically created gun category, and then they're going to ban those guns. And so to answer your question, what they did is they would take a rifle like an AR-15. The AR-15 was not an assault weapon. It became an assault weapon if it had a flash hider, a thumb hole stock, 30-round magazine, those kinds of things. That's a myth that people think in and of itself you could even buy an assault weapon, quote unquote. I bought one of my favorite AR-15s right in the middle of the assault weapons ban. The catch is it has no flash hider and it doesn't have a collapsible stock. Other than that, it is a normal operating AR-15.
So you wrote July 29th, the ATF says the majority of guns recovered in Illinois are from Illinois. And there's this, you end with this line, the ATF's 2018 figures show that guns recovered and traced to the source are over 9 times more likely to be pistols than rifles of any kind. So if there was a quote-unquote assault weapons ban, would that change that number?
Well, no, Kyle, because I have other pieces on Breitbart through the years showing that I believe, I don't want to misstate, but I believe over 4 times as many people are stabbed to death each year than are killed with rifles of any kind. I draw that from FBI crime stats. Over 4 times as many people are stabbed to death as are killed with rifles of any kind. And when you think of rifles of any kind, you're thinking about bolt action, lever action, breech action, pump, and then you get into the semi-automatic and eventually a small category called quote-unquote assault weapons. So assault weapons make up just a small slither of rifles of any kind. Mm-hmm. So if over 4 times as many people are stabbed to death and killed with rifles of any kind, who knows how many more people are stabbed to death than killed with an AR-15? The number would be hard to fathom, or the ratio, because it would be so minimal as far as the AR-15 is concerned. But it makes your point that you could have a quote-unquote assault weapons ban. That's not the weapon criminals are using anyway, so it won't change anything.
Right. And so the data shows that pistols are being used. And in fact, I saw some images on social media of the individual who fired at police and then was shot by police, which they claim, triggered the whole rioting and looting that happened. And he was using a pistol. That is, at least according to the data, that's what the criminals use, is a pistol. So for Lori Lightfoot to come out and say, we need to do a assault weapons ban and we need to have more background checks. And that was the other question I wanted to ask you. There are background checks now. What is a universal background check?
Well, that's a misnomer. I mean, the phrase universal background check is disinformation to begin with, because what they're trying to do is give you the impression that it's a different kind of background check. It's the exact same background check we have. We've had checks since 1998, mandatory federal checks on all retail sales since 1998. What the Democrats want to do is expand those checks as far as expanding when they occur, so that they also include private gun sales. Be the exact same check, but it would just also mean that you couldn't sell a gun to your lifelong neighbor unless you went through a federal agent for a background check. And what they don't tell you is the outcome of that is that private gun sales are criminalized. In other words, I couldn't sell a 5-shot revolver to my lifelong friend if just on my own. If I failed to do a background check, I would be criminalized for that. And so that's really the whole goal. And I believe the end game, Kyle, is that allows them to close the loophole for guns that they don't have paperwork on, because they didn't begin background checks till 1998. And who knows how many gazillion guns were already in circulation then. They have no paperwork on those guns. So if they could put universal background checks into place now and start following private sales, they believe they could better figure out who owns guns, where they keep guns. And ultimately, this sounds like conspiracy talk, but it's just reality. Ultimately, what that means is that when the country follows California's lead and wants to confiscate, they'll know which addresses to go to so they can confiscate guns.
And they honestly expect the people who are rioting and looting in downtown Chicago are going to contact a federal agent to say, I would like to sell this gun to someone else. Is that okay? I mean, they really expect that to happen. AWR Hawkins is Second Amendment correspondent for Breitbart News. Thanks for joining me today.
Kyle, it was great to be with you. Thank you.
This is the Kyle Olson Show. We'll be right back.